All right, today on the Paul Harrell program, we're going to be talking about President Trump urging Senator John Thune to get the support behind ending the filibuster so we could not only get the government back open, but you could actually pass the Trump agenda with a lot more ease, maybe even secure our elections. Right now, we have elections in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We have reports all across those states about electronic voting machines not working, about independent voters not being on the rolls, and they're being sent away because now they have to file provisional ballots. Oh, but guess what? They're running out of provisional ballots. We could fix this with federal election reforms, get rid of electronic voting machines, go to paper ballots, and we could especially do it if the Senate Republicans would end the filibuster. The question is, why are they saying they're not going to do it? What's the real reason? The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. It is officially flannel shirt season, and which is my favorite time of year, honestly. We've got, in the great state of Arkansas, modern gun season opens this Saturday, where in my home state there'll be anywhere between 200 and 300,000 Arkansans hiding in trees with high-powered rifles that they know how to use, that they're trained to use. It's a pretty intimidating statistic, if you ask me, but it's one that I absolutely love. Eric Haynes is back with us while Rob is out. Eric, welcome back, sir.
Good to be part of the conversation.
So let's go ahead and get started right where we mentioned this yesterday. So this is kind of right where we left off. President Trump coming out and tweeting, posting this on Truth Social, by the way. Sorry, I always want to say tweet, but it is what it is. He says the Democrats are far more likely to win the midterms and the next presidential election if we don't do the termination of the filibuster, the nuclear option, because it will be impossible for Republicans to get common sense policies done with these crazed Democrat lunatics being able to block everything by withholding their votes. For 3 years, nothing will be passed and Republicans will be blamed. Elections, including the midterms, will be rightfully brutal. If we do, and by the way, that's brutal on Trump because they're going to just impeach him like they did last time, and it's going to be a complete circus. And the media, the mainstream media, the intel oligarch media will just be clapping like seals the whole time, continuing to actively deceive the American public. For 3 years, nothing will get passed. Republicans will be blamed. Elections, including the midterms, will be rightfully brutal. If we do terminate the filibuster, we get everything approved, like no Congress in history. We will have fair, free, and safe elections, no men and women's sports or transgender for everybody, strong borders, major tax and energy cuts, and we'll secure our Second Amendment, which the Democrats will also terminate immediately. If we don't do it, they are far more likely to do well in the upcoming elections, which would mean a packed Supreme Court, 2 more states, and 4 more Democrat senators, D.C. and Puerto Rico, and 8 more electoral college votes. Remember, Republicans, they are going to end the filibuster as soon as they get the chance. We know this because they already tried, and the only 2 people who didn't go along are now out of office. But they have much less chance of winning if we have great policy wins after wins after wins. In fact, they will lose big and for a very long time. Terminate the filibuster now, end the ridiculous shutdown immediately, and then, most importantly, pass every wonderful Republican policy that we have dreamt of for years but never gotten. We will be the party that cannot be beaten, the smart party. If you have any understanding of what it's like to not only acquire political power, but then use that political power, use the hard power that you have, this is what he's calling for. And we already have news, Fox News reporting that the Senate Majority Leader John Thune is saying, there's not enough support from Republicans to eliminate the filibuster despite President Donald Trump's push. So they are immediately throwing cold water on what President Trump is asking them to do. not only for the good of, if you're somebody on SNAP benefits right now, you're like, yeah, that's a great idea. End the nuclear option so I get my money. If you're a government contractor, yeah, that's a great idea. End the nuclear option. So it definitely has short-term implications, but we have long-term implications too. Really, really bright future ahead when you don't have the 60-vote threshold. And we have elections to secure because we're seeing right now as I speak, Eric, they are not securing the elections. Elections are not secure. So, with the everything that we talked about at the top of the show. So what do you think? Why is there no support to do this among Republicans? Are there many answers? Is there just one? What do you think?
First off, I love when President Trump switches to all caps in his social media posts. I always have to wonder what he's thinking when he touches that all caps button and goes from there and finishes out his statement. I think this plays right into exactly what we talked about last Thursday, which was our great vice president's comments at Ole Miss about the filibuster. And we said specifically, and I highlighted this as one of the best quotes I took from that speech, where he said, "I want every conservative to remember, it's an important part of my entire political philosophy that we cannot be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. The left is already going to do it regardless of whether we do it. That's the takeaway of the last 40 years, unquote. And the threat of we don't need to do this because once they get into power, then they'll do it. I think that's off the table. Congress is so polarized now that we already know it's baked in that the Democrats will do this once or if they ever get back into power. And I think Trump's message there in that social post, and I hope he's having good, objective conversations with Senator Thune. I think Senator Thune is a great man. I think he's a great majority leader right now. And I hope that they're having some strong, objective conversations as a leadership group about the filibuster, and that not enough support from Republicans. I hope that they flush that out and figure out exactly what that means, because I don't know what that means based on that chyron or that little snippet there. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall when they're talking in the next Oval Office meeting, and Thune and Johnson and Vance and Rubio and the president are all sitting around saying, what are we waiting on here? Mm-hmm. Why do we want to risk going into the midterms?
I don't know. I think there's that's a potential reason for some Republicans, the one you laid out. Well, what are the Democrats? They're going to do it too. That's one. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the least likely. I think that's a good talking point. I think that's I think a lot of these Republicans are bifurcated. I think they're I think they're weasels. I think they want to find a way to not have to do Trump's agenda, because I don't think they really want to solve problems. I don't think they really support it. I don't think some of their donors really want it to happen, like securing elections and that sort of thing. Because think about it. I mean, there are some that believe that, let's just take the elections, for example. I mean, there are some people that believe that these machines are not just flipping things for Democrats, that these machines are flipping votes for Republicans, establishment ones, in tough, close primaries. Okay? And I'm not necessarily saying that the Republicans are aware of it, but you understand, getting rid of the machines and going back to paper ballots and you can still cheat with paper ballots. I mean, people cheated with paper ballots all the time. But in the age of artificial intelligence, in the age of how you can't even believe your own eyes, it makes no sense at all to leave the process to how we select our leaders to ones and zeros that are programmed by somebody. It's insane. It's like, have you ever seen Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah.
The Edward James Olmos, it was on Sci-Fi back in the early 2000s. Remember? Yeah. I mean, it's like one of my top 5 TV shows of all time. I thought it was incredible. But like the whole point of that was, the Battlestar, the reason why it didn't get blown up, the ship, is because it was totally unnetworked, because it was made that way when they were, fighting computers. It just makes no sense that we're doing that. So
You want to go back to like the Scantron Chad ballots?
The Scantron, Scantron. Oh my goodness,
we're old enough to remember the Chads.
Yes,
remember the Chads.
I remember that. I'm old enough to remember. Yeah, like you would take a test, the teachers didn't want to grade papers anymore. So you had your test, and then you had your Scantron,
Yeah.
and then you got to know your grade like immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting up from my desk. What did I make on the test? You scan it in.
Was that 2012? Or was it earlier than that? Because that was the Florida.
Oh, you're talking about Florida.
Yeah.
I'm talking about taking tests at school.
That too, but I was remembering back, some flashlights were going back in my head for flashbacks from when I was a kid, when the Florida situation happened with the Chads.
I remember that.
That's why
Okay.
I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, we go away from machines. What do we go back to, if not everything handwritten?
Yeah.
All those types of things.
I don't know.
I just want people to show their identification when they vote.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That'd be great.
Wouldn't
for
that be
me,
nice?
that'd just be a big win.
Yeah, I don't mean to. You can give both arguments, but in this, with technology the way it is now, when it comes to voting, it is not our friend as far as I'm concerned. Like,
No.
it's just when we've had it all proven. I mean, they couldn't connect to the internet, and then somebody connected to the internet in the middle of an Arizona hearing, like a committee hearing, and just proved them all wrong right there to their faces.
Yeah, I talked to a friend this morning who went and voted in New York, a work colleague friend of mine, and showed up to vote, and they didn't even ask him for his ID. In New York, the only time you have to show your ID is if you're voting for the very first time. That's according to New York state law. So, he went in and cast his ballot, and they never even asked him for his ID.
Wow, that's insane, man.
So it's just inconsistent.
absolutely
I'd love to see some consistency.
So, I mean, and it could be any other agenda item, by the way. The fact that the Republicans are not on board with this, to me, is I don't know how, and maybe they work something out. That's fine. I can appreciate that you've got faith in John Thune. I'm very much on the fence. I mean, like, I don't have a lot of faith in any of these guys. And Chuck Grassley, God love him, the chairman of Judiciary, really liked some of the stuff that he produces, but then when it came to getting rid of the blue chip rule to fast track these Trump nominees that were being stonewalled, he didn't want to do it. And then Thune eventually stepped up and found a way to do it, in some capacity. But I mean, the Senate is moving; they're moving too slow, and I don't want to hear about, well, they're a deliberative body. The country is at stake here. I mean, if you don't get, there are so many reforms that would be great if we could just get 51 votes and move on. Mm-hmm. And kind of goes back to what I was saying yesterday about, making it really hard on the Democrat Party, because of what they've done. But there's the uniparty, and a lot of these guys stick together. A lot of these guys, are friends, and they, their objective is to maintain power for themselves, maintain power for the system, draining the swamp, if you will, or whatever. We don't even hear about that. But I mean, do you remember? I mean, you go back to Mitch McConnell, who, if Mitch McConnell was a normal person, right, as old as he is, 10 years ago, you would have thought he would have been like, man, I'm going to go back to Kentucky. I'm going to relax on the farm.
Yeah.
I'm going to drink my sweet tea on the front porch. I'm going to enjoy my family. I'm going to enjoy. That's what you would do. That's what I would do.
Totally.
Why do these people want to stay in Washington so long? The man is now essentially another version of Joe Biden. He's tripping, he's falling all over himself, and there's nobody in his life to say, hey, man, it's time for you to go. You should have gone 10 years ago. And yet it was Mitch McConnell who was telling Trump in his first term, stop all of this drain the swamp nonsense. Don't use that phrase anymore.
I think that's why they are sticking around, is they want to be that balancing act of what was the great Republican reset of 2016, where the thing that nobody expected to happen and that everybody said could never happen, happened. And Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton for the presidency. And I still remember to this day being up late that night with my wife watching and just being absolutely dumbfounded by what was happening. And Michael Moore's new little documentary on it, or little documentary snippet of it, is just so pure and perfect, because that's what happened. And so I think that's why guys like McConnell and Grassley stick around, is they feel like they have to be the elder statesmen that help the young guys stay on track for some semblance of the old guard. Maybe I could be wrong in that. That's just one.
No, I mean,
middle-aged guy's
it's certainly
opinion.
an idea. I mean, we're going to talk about the passing of Dick Cheney. I mean, there are people in the party still today that disagree with Donald Trump and align more with Dick Cheney's worldview.
Yeah.
There just is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's specifically why they don't want to end the filibuster, but right now they're insulated.
Yeah.
If you end the filibuster, now all of a sudden it's up to the people who claim to be Republicans to actually pass the agenda. Right now, they don't have to take a stand on anything. We really don't know what they believe. We know what they say on the campaign trail. We know they say that they're for the platform. We know they say they're for Trump. We know they want Trump's endorsement, and they get Trump's endorsement. But they would actually, like if the filibuster ends and then they vote against the Trump agenda, well, then they expose themselves. Then they potentially face the wrath of the voters. Right now, it's the best of both worlds for these people. They get to blame the Democrats. They get to fundraise off the Democrats. If the Democrats win the midterms because we don't secure our elections, they get to fundraise even more because now the Democrats are in charge. And you got to help me. You know, remember when Lindsey Graham, who, by the way, you know, is being primaried by a guy that I like by the name of Mark Lynch. Remember when Lindsey Graham faced his last challenger and was going on Sean Hannity's show every night pleading for money? Please, I promise. And yet this guy has thrown Trump under the bus how many times? And then for whatever reason, Trump takes him back in. I don't get that relationship at all. But if the filibuster goes away, the Republicans are no longer insulated. They can't just blame the Dems. They're going to have to vote for the agenda. And I think there's a significant amount of them that aren't going to do it. They don't want to do it. And then they won't have their scapegoat. And that's the problem. That, to me, I can't think of another reason. I think that's in my mind, that's the best reason. But that's just because I don't trust any of them. So I'm not trying to
I get it.
I'm not trying to. This is not a black pill. I think there's a way around. Trump's going to have to. If Trump wants to end the filibuster, he's going to have to make deals. I think that's the key. He's going to have to go to those Republicans and make deals with them.
And who better do we want in that situation? The deal maker.
Yes. But
that's why I have a lot of faith and try to be a perpetual optimist as it relates to these things, because I do believe he's the one that can go in and bring the right people together.
Yeah.
And get what needs to be done accomplished with or without them and through them.
The more immediate, though, as we talked about earlier, is the shutdown.
Sure.
In the filibuster, you end the shutdown. That's why General Mike Flynn, who was framed for treason, says the GOP is awful. The White House needs to stop saying how good of a leader John Thune is when he can't muster the votes in his own party to overcome this monumental problem that will fall into real Donald Trump's lap sooner than later. Because there is a banking crisis potential. I have seen even more. The Fed repo markets, the banks are borrowing. They're taking their treasuries to the Fed, and they're getting all of this cash. They're turning the printing presses back on because government checks aren't there, government contractors aren't there. You've got people not paying their mortgages who work for the government. Then they've got the food stamp stuff that's not getting deposited in the banks. It's a huge problem.
Forgive me, I'm going to disagree with General Flynn on this, not to be devil's advocate again. But,
no, it's fine. Do it.
I think Leader Thune has mustered the votes 14 times in a row with the exception of Rand Paul. And I understand Rand Paul's position of why adding money to the debt is just something he is fundamentally against, so he will never cast a vote for that, which uses any money without immediately taking money away. But I think Thune's problem is that he doesn't have the ability to work with Schumer, and it's not necessarily his problem as much as it is the polarization of the Democratic Party and holding everyone hostage. But that's, to me, the criticism. It's not that Thune can't muster votes in his own party. They've voted 14 times now to reopen the government.
They have. We have the latest one as well. Flynn goes on and says 42 million SNAP recipients, right or wrong, and another 7 to 8 American citizens who are too proud to accept a government handout. That's 50 million going hungry as we head into the holidays and winter months. The left's plans are to continue to make America suffer some more. So, he's saying, look, they're doing this because they want a backlash against Trump and Republicans.
Yeah. And the Democrats have literally admitted that this is their leverage
plan. There was also some idea. Somebody was saying they think they're going to reopen the government after today sometime. They were doing all of this to gin up the Virginia Democrats and the New Jersey Democrats. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. Yeah, here it is. Senate Democrats refuse for the 14th time, like you were saying, Eric, to reopen the federal government, continuing to inflict suffering nationwide. 60 votes needed. Here's the thing, though. I mean, again, Trump says end the filibuster, and then you're all good. So why won't Republicans do it?
They mustered John Fetterman over. He's taken a very objective approach. They've mustered 2 other independents over to vote for this thing. They just need a handful of other Democrats, but I just don't think they're going to get just a handful. I think Schumer, the person that he is really the one doing the mustering.
Yeah.
And, we'll just have to see what happens over the next few days. It's sad.
It is. It is very sad. Here's just a few reports about what's going on with our elections. The Scott Pressler writing, reports of machines being down in northeast Philadelphia. By the way, this is a Republican area of Philadelphia, and voters went home. Another report, breaking news earlier today, independent voters were not included in the poll books. Now, every independent in Chester County has to vote a provisional ballot. This is for all of Chester County. How does this even happen? Share everywhere. On the phone with Legal right now. So just so you know, we've not been talking about Pennsylvania. So we've been talking about New Jersey and Mondani in New York. But Pennsylvania did go to the polls today for municipal elections as well as statewide three state Supreme Court justices they were voting for. And they were also voting to fill a vacancy on the Commonwealth and Superior Courts. So there's Supreme Court of Pennsylvania stakes across the state right now. And this is just making everybody feel very uneasy. Then we go to another post in 3 red districts in Cumberland County, New Jersey. Okay, switching states now. The machines are down. This was, of course, this morning. Again, on the phone with Legal. And then we have this, back to Pennsylvania. One of the biggest scandals. This was at 1 o'clock this afternoon. One of the biggest scandals in Pennsylvania history is happening right now. Chester County polling locations are running out of provisional ballots, and voters are being turned away. This needs to be nationwide news. Red alert. So you had a situation where the independents, people who are not Republican or not Democrat, are left out of the poll book. So if you want to vote, you have to do a provisional ballot, which, by the way, who knows where those are going to go. And then they run out of provisional ballots, and so they turn people away. This kind of nonsense has got to stop. And you can do this. You can especially do it if you end the filibuster. And then the other news that we have is they're according to Jack Posobiec, we had multiple bomb threats at polling places, machines down, independents excluded from poll books. We're seeing a coordinated attack to suppress Election Day voting. What can you tell us, Eric, about the bomb threats? We heard a lot about the bomb threats.
What I heard was that, or what I had read and heard, is that the bomb threats were emailed, that they very quickly realized that there was no credible evidence of an actual bomb threat, and that those polling places were turned back on. I'm glad we have people raising their hands and calling things out as they're happening in real time. I hate to say this, but I do believe that election integrity and questions on election integrity is something that's just baked into the cake now as it relates to there are going to be issues, especially in states where you're not showing ID before you vote. You have to assume and believe that some amount of election mandering around or issues will be taking place. But I think there are plenty of lawyers present at all places now after the 2016 and 2020 specifically debacle. You have people watching very closely now and calling things out. Whether these are massive red flag issues that last throughout the day. I'm thankful that it's great weather today up in the Northeast and a lot of these places. And everything I'm hearing is that while people are waiting in line, they're enjoying themselves. And we'll see what happens later on tonight. Could be a long night.
Yeah. I just... I can play devil's advocate on the getting rid of the voting machines, right? Because I said earlier, you can also cheat with paper, right? I think in today's day and age, though, where there's more cameras everywhere, there's more everybody's got a camera. I think it'd be a lot harder to cheat with a paper ballot system. than there is now with computers. I was a long time ago. I was speaking at a Tea Party event. This would have been back when the Tea Party was going on.
Yeah.
I was in it, so that would have been 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I was somewhere in Central Arkansas, and I was in an IHOP in one of their rooms, and we were speaking, and I met great people because the people in the Tea Party were great, and I started talking to this guy about elections, and my general in terms of with Republicans and Democrats back there, my general philosophy, and even primaries, was if it's close, they're going to steal it. That's all was what I would say. Well, so he launched into this hilarious story about his great grandfather or something, or running for sheriff or something. I don't know, or his grandfather. I guess it was his grandfather, because this was an older man already. So his grandfather was running for sheriff somewhere in Arkansas, and he was like, and you'll never believe me, they cheated. Everybody cheated back in the day. And he was like, he called one of his guys on election night to see what was going on. What are you hearing? And all he can hear is just this, his campaign worker just in a total frantic, out of breath, and just like, and he says, like, I don't know what we're going to do. They're buying the ballot boxes faster than we can buy the ballot boxes. And, he just, the way he told it,
scratch.
Yeah. The way he told it, it was like something out of a Seinfeld episode, just like mass chaos.
Great
What
Seinfeld
I mean?
episode.
They're buying the ballot boxes faster than we can buy the ballot boxes. And so, this type of stuff has gone on before, for sure. But I think if you look here in Arkansas, how the two counties that did the paper ballots, Searcy and Independence County, how they're Searcy in particular, they get the paper ballots, and then they've got cameras live streaming everything. Live streaming the count, everything is recorded, and that is a lot more transparent than these machines running on ones and zeros, connecting to the internet and everything else.
The most important word you just said there was transparency, and that's what we should all demand and hope for in our elections, whether you're in Northeast Arkansas at a little church casting your ballot, or you have friends in New York City casting their vote for the next mayor. I just wish and hope and pray for transparency, and that's all we can really do and hope for.
Here is Mondani. So he's probably going to be the next mayor of New York City. Going to make the people there suffer is what's going to happen. Maybe not in the immediate, but probably closer than you think. The bomb threats that we just reported on, Eric talked about, came in via email. Mamdani went to the press and blamed President Donald Trump.
Incredibly concerning. And I think that it is an illustration of the attacks we're seeing on our democracy. Sometimes they're blatant and explicit in the manner of these bomb threats. And we have to understand this as part of the general approach the Trump administration has taken to trying to intimidate voters with baseless allegations of voter fraud as a means of trying to repress the voice of Americans across this country.
I don't know if he's going to get that question again today, but the general approach the Trump administration has taken to try and intimidate voters.
What's he talking about there, Eric? He's talking about illegal aliens?
Caroline Levitt addressed this in the press briefing this afternoon, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Her comment and her response to the question that was asked by someone in the press pool was that this is absolutely insane that he would say that, but it is what it is on Election Day, and just because somebody says something doesn't make it true.
I also saw where he walked back today, Election Day. He walked back that he wants the city to take over grocery stores.
Yeah.
Which I thought, what a time to walk that back on Election Day. That's not going to swing the needle for anybody one way in either direction. Wonder why you do that.
Yeah, I think people in this audience that are listening to us speak today, I think they can take comfort, and I hope that they take comfort in this. And that is, don't get frustrated by the results of this evening, specifically as it relates to Mamdani being mayor of potentially becoming mayor of New York City. My folks always taught me that, you're going to watch people do things the right way and do things the wrong way. Learn from both and try not to make those mistakes. And I think the folks in New York City are going to learn a big lesson here as to what moving towards a democratic socialist platform and policy position will do. But I think this is a rejection of democratic policies. So I think the solution to affordability, which is the big thing that everybody's talking about in New York, and that affordability crisis is not socialism. And so I really do think this is not a rejection of conservatism. And this is, again, what I think we can take comfort in, is that what's going on in New York City is not a rejection of conservatism. I think conservatism, if you look at Sliwa, the Republican candidate, it's not even really a factor. It's a very small percentage of someone with conservative values. But they're unhappy with Democratic policies that have caused prices and everything and affordability to go through the roof. And so this is a rejection of democratic policies. And this is why I think either way, whatever happens tonight, and hopefully our audience understands that, take comfort in the fact that either way, the Democrats lose.
You are exactly right about that. This is a bunch of woke liberals fighting over who they want to lead them. The conservative or whatever, America First, MAGA, whatever. I mean, that's not even in the equation now. This is
New York City is
it's a dark
deep,
place.
Yeah, New York City is deep blue, and so for a snake oil salesman type to come out with very, very articulate and well-spoken language about everything's going to be free. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm coming in to take care of this stuff. I get it that all this stuff is crazy expensive. This is ridiculous. I'm going to get all these things paid for by the rich people. So come vote for me, and you can have a lot of really cool free stuff.
Yeah.
This will be the first real big test.
It'd be crazy if Donald Trump did something like denaturalize. I don't even know if you can do that. Denaturalize Mamdani.
I don't.
Somebody said that. Anyway, sorry.
I want to see this play out. I really do, because I want a lot.
I mean, they're not really voting. I know they're saying socialism. I mean, the dude is a communist. Like it's just not. New York City was already socialist. To your point, they're just going further to the left, and their city's not going to get better. I mean, this is going to be a microcosm of why. Well, it's failed every time it's been tried, but it just hasn't been tried by the right people. The right people haven't done it yet. Okay, well, we're about to put that little experiment to the test, and New York's going to be a worse, more violent place, because what goes along with Mamdani is also, you're still going to have cashless bail. You're still going to have all this nonsense.
Yeah.
Now, you could maybe end cashless bail nationwide if the Republicans would get on board with Trump and end the filibuster. Just FYI.
Exactly.
Little flashback. I mean, I don't have to go through all this, because actually we got some other stuff we're going to get to. But this is a flashback tweet from Posobiec in 2020, back when we were trying to get the vote right in Philadelphia, and even though they had attorneys and they had a court order, they were still not allowed in. Then, of course, we remember back in 2020, 5 years ago, Detroit boarded up their windows before counting mail-in ballots. You remember this?
Absolutely.
And we all watched.
It's like, come on, Detroit. Be more like Cersei. Transparency.
That's right.
That's what people need.
We all watched that happen.
Yeah. Remember.
And we were like, I just kept thinking, oh, well, somebody's going to do something. Somebody's going to do the right thing here. There's going to be some level head prevailed. No, all of it was. And you know what? This is another. I'm sorry. I don't mean to just slam the Republicans like I am right now, but I really think you can judge a lot of where people stand on the Trump agenda based on how many of them were willing to question the 2020 election. How many politicians were willing to question the 2020 election? After the false flag, and that's what I believe it was, January 6th, Fedsurrection. Now we know, 200-something FBI agents were in the crowd, and now that we know all of this, we know they were invited into the building. We know that J6ers were charged with an Enron crime. They were charged for interfering in an official proceeding, which was a law that was overturned by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said you cannot. You can't charge these people, all these J6ers that they were, persecuting. That law was created to deal with the Enron scandal, because the SEC had initiated an official proceeding and wanted these white-collar criminals to preserve their records, and they started shredding documents. That's why they created the rule. That's what they used to charge not all J6ers, but the ones that weren't violent in any way, the ones that were just kind of following the crowd that got charged, the grandmas, things like that. That's what they were charged and harassed with. Okay? Where was Congress? Instead, you had congressmen. I don't know if it was Senator Graham, but you had some, you should have just shot them all. You had some of these senators should have just shot them all. Where were you on J6? Where were you publicly on 2020 and the election? And if you were silent, and now you're going to complain that Jack Smith and Arctic Frost was spying on you, spying on your emails, I think it's atrocious. I think it's terrible. I think Jack Smith should be investigated and thrown in jail if he's guilty. But now all of these Republicans, coming out, oh, this is a big deal. Where were they when the American people saw the election stolen in front of us, and what did you guys do about it? I just think that that's something to be very frustrated about. I think many people were sold out about. I mean, this happened and nobody did anything about it. And then for 4 years we had people in what are essentially gulags, and now we found out they were going to try to put even more people in gulags because they were spying on Congress's emails. And now they're upset about it. And let's just pray that they're upset enough to actually do something and not let this stuff happen ever again. So anyway, that's me saying my piece. I don't mean to black pill, but
Piece is good.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so here
I mean,
is.
I'll just say this real quickly. I went to bed that night on election night in 2020 with Trump having a huge lead.
Yep, and all those 3 steps.
I'll never forget waking up the next morning and just being confused and wondering what happened. And as the days and weeks and months went on, wondering how in the world 80 million plus people voted for Joe Biden. And, part of me is very much it was a rigged election because of the media biases, because of the things that they suppressed, because of the things that they, kept from public light. And it's still a source of frustration now. So when you see issues happening today, even though as minor as they are, it brings back a lot of memories of some really big deal problems that we've got to get through and get fixed. And to the original point about the filibuster is like, we could really fix a lot of election integrity issues if we would just go ahead and eliminate the filibuster and make states, have the same rules.
Yeah. I would love to know which Republicans are not on board with ending the filibuster.
Me too.
And I want to see the Venn diagram of which ones were spied upon that we know about,
right?
And which one, because if you really wanted to fix this being spied upon and all this other nonsense, you'd be for ending the filibuster so you could really do some sweeping reforms, not just with the elections, but with the intel oligarchy and everything else. But, there's a lot of people that think D.C.'s run on blackmail. And if you've got politicians that are being blackmailed, they don't want to be put in a position where they have to vote against the people who are blackmailing them. So
yeah.
There's that problem as well. So California is also engaged in their Proposition 50. Is it 50?
Proposition 50.
50. Yep. Proposition 50. This is the response to Texas and Florida redistricting to a more equitable congressional breakdown. And, of course, Gavin Newsom says, no, we want to redistrict now. So it is expected to pass. But here is...
Watch for his victory speech tonight, too, as a precursor to the kind of stuff that we're going to see over the next few years as he starts his presidential candidacy.
Which is...
It's gross.
All the more reason to end the filibuster, so we don't have to put up with people like Gavin Newsom and giving them more ammo, giving Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is going to start to essentially, salivate over the idea of being on an impeachment committee for Trump if they win the midterms.
But let's take a positive approach, though, that at least for me, this is what I'm encouraging my friends, is that I want to hear from him. I want AOC to be loud. I want Bernie to be loud. I want all of these radicals to be loud so that it invigorates and it engages the silent majority that put Trump in office both times. So
I like that. That'll happen.
I'll just say that the more we hear from the radicals on the left side of the aisle and a lot of their crazy policies and their crazed antics and the way they do things as far as governing or lack thereof, for that matter, the more it helps us understand that we need to really be very, very proactive and aggressive about making sure we're casting our votes and that we're being the right influences on those that we can talk with.
Here's Caroline Levitt
Persuade.
reacting to what's going on in California with Proposition 50.
Legal and criminal review. By whom and why? And also, in this vein, does the White House still plan to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting, and what legal authority do you have to do that?
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
So, illegal aliens are getting mail-in ballots. This is nothing new. We know this is going on, but it's certainly going on in California with their mail-in ballot. So I'm one of these guys that is totally fine with sending ICE to polling locations in blue cities and blue states. I have no problem with it because why should you care? But if they've got a universal mail-in ballot system, then sending ICE to polling stations doesn't really do anything.
It's like we talked about earlier in the show. And it's good that she's talking about providing the receipts because this is happening. And we have evidence of it. We've seen evidence of it before, and this dates back many, many years. And this was the Democrats' ultimate plan, and we've talked about this before as well, to bring in as many illegal immigrants as possible, get them in places where they can find ways to vote and keep them in power, and gerrymander and keep themselves in perpetual power and keep those that have come to this country dependent on them for handouts. I totally believe that is part of it because they've admitted it. They've admitted that that's the Democratic policy, or that's their goal.
Yeah, kind of a common thread that just kind of dawns on me with your point on New York and California. I mean, both of these places are just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse under their current leadership or future leadership.
Sure. Yeah.
The less, if you want to get rid of gerrymander and get rid of all of the Republican districts in California or whatever the map's going to look like, ultimately at this point, the people of California are going to be the ones to suffer. And those in power just get more powerful. Yeah. Those rich just stay rich, and those woke stay woke, and the people who are, the people's lives who are being destroyed by those policies, it's going to continue. You're going to see, continue mass exodus. I mean, Joe Rogan himself left L.A., went to Austin because his state was ruined. Tucker Carlson, originally from California, he left. His state was ruined.
It's one of the biggest aspects of this story in New York City, where you have thousands of people just waiting for what's going to happen tonight, and the moving truck companies and the for sale signs on their properties could literally be, in the ground tomorrow, depending on what happens, and this mass exodus, and they take that money with them. So those billions of dollars that leave, and some of the numbers that they're projecting, if a mass exodus like that happens on a Mamdani victory tonight, could be billions and billions of dollars leaving Manhattan.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
insane.
we will see again, and I'm very, very firm in the opinion that this is nothing to do with conservatism. This is a rejection of Democratic policies. And so if we're going to move towards socialism, because it feels good and because there's a lot of free stuff involved, then that's where the towel gets thrown in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out. I'm out. You
We're-
cannot tax me anymore. You cannot get any more expensive to live here and work here and employ people here. I'm out. I'll take my business to Texas. I will go to Tennessee. I will go, to some of these other great places, and I'll open up shop there.
The DOJ has responded to James Comey a few weeks ago. After his indictment, he made a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. They're even challenging Lindsay Halligan's authority as the attorney in this case, the prosecutor in this case. United States Attorney Lindsay Halligan, this is according to Sundance over at the Conservative Treehouse, has responded to James Comey's motion to dismiss the charges against him in a lengthy response and multiple attachment filing. And this is all public. You can go look at all of this stuff. In addition to refuting the effort by Comey's lawyers to challenge the appointment of United States Attorney Halligan, the USAO office also provides evidence of James Comey's extensive use of a man named Daniel Richman to act as a cutout for leaks in communications with the media. Beginning on January 2nd, 2015, James Comey hired Daniel Richman to be his conduit to the media for all things around the Clinton investigation. Exhibit 3 highlights Richmond emails to Office of Legal Counsel Patrick Findley to begin the process of officially working for Comey as a special government employee. A special government employee like Elon Musk's was. The left had a big problem with Elon Musk being a special government employee, but it is in fact common. There are multiple exhibits highlighting emails between James Comey and Daniel Richman. Here. This is all hyperlinked, proving the former FBI director did intentionally direct Daniel Richman to contact media persons on his behalf and leak investigative background information or instruct them on information James Comey provided. The evidence on this issue is overwhelming. So they made a motion to dismiss, and Lindsay Halligan comes back and basically is like, hey, look at all the evidence we've got on this guy. Goes on, Daniel Richman, working directly on the instructions of James Comey, worked closely with the New York Times journalist Mike Schmidt, husband of MSNBC's Nicole Wallace, to publish material, Exhibit 8. Richman then coordinated the FBI director's message with dozens of national journalists, writing the scripts for them to push on behalf of James Comey. When we say Mockingbird Media, we're literally talking about a program that did exist where, the journalists were working and being paid directly by the CIA. In this case, we have the FBI essentially becoming a propaganda outlet to support the FBI's narrative. Again, and in this case, by extension, the Clinton campaign's narrative. Again, the evidence on this collaborative endeavor is overwhelming. Interestingly, Government Exhibit Number 12 is the criminal complaint stemming from the FBI investigation, which began on July 21st of this year. The investigative summary notes the purposeful use of room 9582 at FBI headquarters intended to destroy classified evidence concealed in 5 different burn bags. Inside 5 burn bags located in room 9582, it says, a cursory inventory of the 9582 skiff revealed the existence of classified documents, including documents believed to be official records, inside burn bags, which appear to have been placed in the skiff around the time of the 2025 presidential inauguration, Friday, January 17, 2025 through Wednesday, January 22, 2025. A brief review of the contents of the burn bags revealed that some of the documents left behind may have come from a collection of records held by certain unidentified senior government officials at FBI headquarters. Then it goes on. The discovery of these burn bags containing highly sensitive records presumably intended for destruction. Among the records found were many related to the FBI's Mar-a-Lago search, January 6 Capitol breach, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, as well as a copy of the classified appendix to the John Durham Special Counsel report. Then we're going to wrap up here, It says that officials maintained that they were not made aware of the existence of the burn bags found in room 9582, nor were they consulted to examine them. The overarching context for the irregularities involving 9582 appears to be a hasty and chaotic effort by certain employees to collect senior management officials' records in advance of the anticipated transition of a new team of FBI executives taking control after the presidential inauguration. Deliberate attempts were being made to conceal or destroy official records contrary to the FBI's responsibility to preserve these records in advance of the new administration. So...
You feel like the next Tom Clancy or John Grisham is jumping off of. They're reading this and they're like making some notes. Like, this will be good. We can put Harrison Ford or I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
Let's
Get off
Jeremy,
my plane.
Let's do Jeremy Renner or somebody would really make this look cool.
Yeah, I think this is there's
deep-
going to
this
be
is
even
deep
more
stuff.
evidence, and they can get Comey on a lot of stuff. Perjury. Obviously, I'm still hoping for a superseding indictment for treason.
Yeah.
In a grand RICO conspiracy, but
I think I have these flashbacks of as a child of Oliver North, and how many Time, Newsweek magazines were back then of this huge scandal. And I just see this playing out, and it'll be interesting to see who Kash Patel and who the State Department really, once they find out all these details, because they're digging deep, and they've got really good, solid people figuring this stuff out. And so I'm anxious to see who's going to...
I hope so.
I hope so.
The only thing that matters is a conviction. I mean, if Comey doesn't go to jail, the whole of the country suffers either today or at some point in the future if the Dems get back in power. Like, that's where I'm at. And it's not just Comey. Brendan Clapper, all of them, and many, many more. I feel like the FBI agents that are still at the FBI that were overseeing the Arctic Frost with Jack Smith spying on members of Congress. Why are they not fired yet? They should have been fired 2 weeks ago when we found out all this, and yet they're still there. Some of them, according to reports, were even promoted within the current FBI with the leadership there. So, and again, the FBI is a giant organization, and there's a lot of corruption, and they've been recruiting a specific type of person within Republican and Democrat administrations that are there to, I really firmly believe, not look after the best interests of the American people. And it was weaponized. But this is at least, I can criticize Pam Bondi here or there, but at least we at least have this indictment so far. And we've got one of Letitia James. We've got one of John Bolton. We just need more. But this is good. This is a positive development. They've got them dead to rights.
Yeah.
And they're exposing a lot of secrets here with these filings. So we'll see what happens. But to get the conviction, that's the trick, because we are in Virginia.
Yeah.
We're in the Eastern District of Virginia. And the jury is going to be what the jury's going to be.
I'm just picturing that final scene of A Clear and Present Danger where Harrison Ford is testifying before the committee and, fade to close or fade to credits. But I that's what I'll hope is going to happen here. And then people are going to get in big trouble.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney passed away at the age of 84. Obviously, the Cheney name has not been one that's been popular among conservatives, or certainly not in the Trump Republican Party for a very long time. Yeah. When you think of Dick Cheney, you immediately think of Liz Cheney. You think the fact that Liz Cheney got a pardon. Mm-hmm. Why did Liz Cheney get a pardon? Well, because of her role for January 6th. Why would she need one? Well, she would need one because of they destroyed the evidence. The J6 committee took all the evidence they had, and they destroyed it. So... say what you want about that. But Dick Cheney, we had a long talk about Dick Cheney offline and what he represents. And to say that he's got a complicated legacy is an understatement, because I feel like I feel like you were going to ask me about how I used to be a libertarian and everything else. Before I was even politically sentient, though, before I was in politics, I didn't consider myself really anything because I didn't know anything, right? And just totally bought the official narrative, the official 9/11 narrative, the official justification for why we needed to be in Iraq in the first place. And yeah, I don't believe the official narrative anymore. So, I see Dick Cheney as somebody responsible for the key foreign policy failures of my entire life, my generation's entire existence as adults. Is we're going to be in the Middle East, we're going to be fighting, and we're going to be dying. Americans are going to be dying. And so I'm not glad that Dick Cheney has passed. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not but now people are talking about him, and yeah, I think his legacy is one to not be repeated. That would be what I would say. But I don't know how you feel about that, Eric. Feel free to disagree with me.
No, I heard someone say today, a commentator said he was a serious political figure, not flashy, but he had tremendous substance on significant issues and was extremely influential to President Bush.
No doubt that is a true statement. I mean, he's a substantial historical figure for sure.
And you could argue that, and a lot of people are talking about this now, he is responsible for, because the 9/11 attacks were supposed to be a series of attacks. And a lot of folks are arguing now, to his credit, that his war hawkish going after terrorists and terrorism in the Middle East, and that destabilized things, or that
what did he did that?
Definitely destabilized
or it stabilized things back at home is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, the capture of KSM and you getting the right information from him and preventing further attacks were partly due to that administration's going immediately after the bad guys.
Yeah.
Now, they're all different levels of bad guys over there, which is the biggest problem. That now we look back on the situation, we're like, I guess we should have left Saddam Hussein in power. That would have been better for history, potentially, if Monday morning quarterbacking it or playing it out now. Should we have left certain people in power that we ended up going in and killing?
That's the divide between Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, and Trump, because Trump made his case in 2016. Listen.
On Monday, during an interview with Wolf Blitzer talking about President George W. Bush's conduct of the war, you said you were surprised that Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi didn't try to impeach him. You said, quote, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing. Close quote. When you were asked what you meant by that, you said, for the war. For the war. He lied. He got us into the war with lies. Do you still believe President Bush should have been impeached?
First of all, I have to say, as a businessman, I get along with everybody. I have business all over the world.
It's true.
I know so many of the people in the audience. And by the way, I'm a self-funder. Yeah. I have my wife and I have my son. That's all I have. I don't have this. So let me just tell you, I get along with everybody, which is my obligation to my company, to myself, etc. Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say, and he ultimately said, it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
But so you still think he should be impeached?
I think it's my turn, isn't it?
You do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
I'm just going to go on a limb here and say that's why Dick Cheney voted for Kamala. Even though Kamala might say weapons of mass destruction are alive, Donald Trump mainstreamed and destroyed the Bush and Cheney legacy within the modern Republican Party, period. Like, that's what Donald Trump did when it came to the war in Iraq. Not to mention, you can't really mention Dick Cheney. I just got a text message from a friend who's watching. You can't really mention Dick Cheney without mentioning Halliburton and the massive amount of money that is made when we go to fight these wars.
I'm thinking of a scene in Jurassic Park 3 where Dr. Grant is looking at his underling who is talking about how I had really good intentions. And Dr. Grant looks at him and he says, some of the worst decisions in the history of this world have been made based on good intentions. And I hope that Dick Cheney had good intentions back then when they were, and I still believe he's a patriot, and I still believe that he wanted what was best for America in general. And so, as a foundation, I think he probably thought, and I think they all thought at the time, that they were doing the right thing. And I think they obviously made some major, major mistakes. And then, we see how things are today. But, that's just kind of where I fall on that. I'll be as positive as I can be.
Well, I know you're
say
very
he was a
positive,
good man.
But what I'll say is this. We are right now, I mean, if you look at, just this filibuster thing, okay, there is an internal struggle between, does the Republican Party belong to the people or does it belong to the donors? Does it belong to the same foreign policy strategies that we've had our entire lifetime that continue to produce more and more, terrible results? And I would just venture to say that there are, I would love to see another Venn diagram. How many Republicans that don't want to end the filibuster to actually get the agenda done for the American people also were in Jeb Bush's camp?
Yeah.
Or in, we're rejecting this point that he made back there. That really kind of comes down. That's one of the key dividing lines. It's one of the key planks right now, the key sticking point, I think.
It's why we can be thankful for the great Republican reset of 2016 in that Donald Trump was elected, and as someone who nobody thought that was ever possible, and everyone said it's absolutely ridiculous to think that this will actually happen, and it did happen, and we're all better because of it.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. That's all the time that we got for this edition. Eric Haynes, thank you again for filling in for Rob. Really do appreciate it. Rob was going to be back as soon as possible. And so we're obviously excited about that. Also want to thank our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Sight and Sound, T-Guard Bail Bonds. Don't forget to call Cody Powers if you're in any trouble. And then, of course, Sherrod Chiropractic. Can't do the show without them. Thank you so much for watching the show, and we're going to see you guys tomorrow.